Meet Kataza. This was his last day living as a free Cape Chakma baboon. 2 weeks ago, the famous and for some notorious baboon Kataza faced an uncertain future. Scientists, government and homeowners wanted to euthanize him, but the SPCA and animal activists wanted him rehabilitated. How has Kataza's fate come to split the Cape Town community? Kataza lived with his troop near Kommetjie, a town on the Cape Peninsula.
He's a very laid-back and gentle baboon.
Animal activist Jenny Trathawan manages the Baboon Matters Trust. She first noticed Kataza was missing.
And it was only 4 days later that the authorities admitted that they had moved Kataza.
That authority was the city of Cape Town, who deemed him a problem animal that habitually raided urban areas. Subsequently, they'd moved him 20 kilometers away to Takai instead of opting for euthanasia. The city's mayoral committee member, Alderman Marianne Nieuwoud, says all other preventative methods had been exhausted.
If the animals have learned the behavior, the more difficult it is to take the lead animal out of it.
Animal welfare organizations were not a part of this decision, says Chief Inspector at the Cape of Good Hope SPCA, Jaco Pieterse.
We believe had the various role players been consulted, this whole debacle could have been avoided. We wanted all avenues to first be explored for the city to be transparent.
I believe that the city of Cape Town relied on data gathered, and what we have contested is that that data wasn't completely accurate.
But behavioral ecologist Esme Beamish, who studies baboons at the University of Cape Town, argues the decision was scientifically sound.
Obviously, when you've got 5 million people surrounding approximately 500 baboons, you have potential for conflict. So you will help a male move from a troop where he would be breeding with his own family to a troop where he breeds with unrelated females. We've relocated 16 odd baboons in the peninsula, and 60% of them integrate.
Director of the Institute for Communities and Wildlife in Africa, Justin Orion, has published extensively on peninsular baboons.
There are people in that community who believe baboons should share space with people. And so it makes it an extraordinarily difficult place to manage baboons.
Scientists call him SK11, but he was given the name Kataza, which in isiXhosa means to be an annoyance or to be bothersome, because he was raiding homes and causing havoc. But he was only doing what comes naturally, finding food. It was the human beings in his vicinity that should have baboon-proofed their homes.
The baboons have been around for hundreds of years, and we as people have moved into their living space. So we as people need to amend our lifestyles so that we don't attract the baboons into our homes because we are being negligent.
In 2000, a primatologist created the city's baboon management protocols, which they say have successfully reduced baboon deaths by human intervention by keeping them out of urban areas 90% of the time.
The best thing for baboons and their conservation and their well-being is to keep them out of urban spaces. And hence the baboon management program has evolved. That they felt he had been severely habituated by people during lockdown. So the authorities felt that there were mitigating circumstances, and the only other option in terms of their guidelines was relocation.
Cape Nature, which regulates environmental legislation, issued a permit for his relocation, says its Nature Operations Executive Director, Ernst Bart.
In the case of SK11, we have adopted several best practice guidelines. We are following a science-based approach to our conservation.
So we did a review of all the management data, and you can see that removing individual animals does not solve the problem.
Trathawan began the social media campaign called Bring Kataza Back, and after he was moved to Takai, she found him.
And so my thought was that then maybe he would walk with me, and then he wouldn't feel quite so vulnerable, and he started walking with me.
Over the next 2 months, Kataza began interacting with a local troop.
He showed all the signs of integrating. His main problem was that he still wanted to go and urban raid.
But then a court order was granted to return Kataza. The application was brought by insolvency practitioner and concerned citizen Renu Engelbrecht.
Look, a few of my welfare friends and colleagues phoned me and advised me that he's not settling in, and I brought a court application against the city of Cape Town to review the decision. Application was settled and Kataza was relocated back to his natal troop.
Many believe people interfered in Kataza's integration process, which was also too short.
The lobby groups thought that he was missing his family and he would go back to Komiki and be accepted and be delighted to see everyone. He spent 2 days in the proximity of them. And the reason was simply this, that he had become now aware of unrelated females, and that's what he wants in his life.
But many fought online about Kataza's saga.
The incredible social media attention took me by surprise. Kataza just was the most incredible perfect storm.
We lost the communication battle because it takes 2 or 3 years to produce a scientific paper that would have explained the value of dispersing and outbreeding.
Baboons have such human-like qualities that we as people often project our emotions onto the creatures. But for conservationists, sometimes what is best for the well-being of a troop, the environment, and for the human beings in the area, culling the animal is sometimes the most ethical way forward. After Kataza failed to reintegrate with his troop, the SPCA stepped in.
The SPCA proposed that Kataza be translocated to the Riverside Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre in Limpopo. We believe it is the only option for him to have a good life in a semi-wild environment. At least he won't be stuck in a cage forever. He will be in a 600-hectare enclosure with other baboons.
That rehab is run by primatologist Bob Venter, who's worked with baboons for 30 years.
Kataza is still a living being. It's a magnificent animal. It's a legend. And henceforth, that animal deserves the right to have a normal life.
We safely darted Kataza with the assistance of 2 veterinarians, and various tests have been done, which was part of the permit conditions.
He then began his almost 2,000-kilometer trip to his new home. We're at a Riverside Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre just outside Tzaneen. Kataza's been here just for a few days, and we're here to find out how he's doing.
I cried like a young kid, just of being grateful that we can save this animal.
They've got many years of experience with rehabilitating primates.
But how do we avoid more Katazas in Cape Town's future? Scientists have proposed contraception, baboon-proof fences, others euthanasia, while activists want the bylaws and protocols to change. Engelbrecht has taken further court action against the city.
They must utilize the services of not only public participation, but also qualified primatologists. And I'm further asking that order that Cape Nature be ordered to oversee the enforcement of their permits.
We've really bent over backwards to do whatever we can to the benefit of both humans and the baboons.
We cannot have a situation like this reoccurring in the future. The baboon protocols must be reviewed and they must be amended so that it benefits the well-being of both the people and the animals that are affected at the end of the day.